Genius.
Wow.
Welcome to the podcast.
Yep.
It is time
Was that
to
really
begin.
your intro?
This is it. We're starting.
Wow.
Does Command
That's
F
what we
mean
call-
Command fail?
Do you want to stay on this
Intro
podcast,
was
Becky, or would you like to come back for another one?
That's called advanced banter.
Wow.
It's time to salute Terry.
Salute, Terry.
This is weird.
We're getting a lot of
Keep
messages
saluting.
right now. I'm feeling
Keep
funny.
That's
Salute-
me.
salute
Hi,
properly.
Terry.
Yes.
Hi,
he's
Terry.
bless the podcast.
Terry has chosen.
He missed the women last week.
What do you mean?
He
missed me.
wouldn't
Oh,
salute.
he wouldn't. No, you know what happened in the last episode? There was all guys. We had Ben and Graham with us, and Terry wasn't happy with that.
No.
Oh.
He's like, we need the female opinion in this room.
And we have made up for it today.
We have
Because we have two highly opinionated women.
No, smart, beautiful.
Wisdom
so
for the
much
vault.
wisdom.
So
for
much
the vault.
wisdom.
The vault is where the
All
wisdom
the
is
wisdom.
held.
We're not just here to sit here and look pretty, guys.
No.
No.
Corinne,
You don't say that to Corinne.
never. Now, so who's with us today? Dave Wakerley here on the buttons, Dan Lee Archer on the funny and on fact checking. Over there, Becky Wakerley, my wife, also long-time pastor of Hillsong Kids, same as me, pretty much same length as me. We started in this together. And Corinne Hawkins, who has been here before. And
This is the
Hey.
second
One
time
second episode.
returning.
Second feature.
And what does VBS stand for?
Really?
Stop.
Come on.
What does it stand
What
for?
does it stand
Bible.
for? Yes.
The B's
But what's
Yeah,
the
what's
V?
the V?
Vacation, Bible. Oh no!
No, come on.
Stop. VBS.
Yes.
School.
Yes, there we go.
That was awesome.
Wow.
There's a lot of pressure. I could see that pressure. She really does know things, everybody, if you're listening.
So great.
It's amazing.
It's a never-ending
Command
gift.
F.
It's a
fail.
never-ending gift.
Command F.
I never
Fail.
noticed that you wear the headphones the whole time.
Because I'm listening to your voices, but you don't need to hear
Right.
yourself.
That's so
But I just
cool.
need, if Dan screams too loudly, I need to bring down the volume.
Ooh, so you really are the button guy.
I am the button guy. I push all the buttons. Okay, so
But he's wearing no buttons.
I'm the button
He
guy.
does-
That buttons.
listen. I was going somewhere, and I've been rudely interrupted so many times already in this podcast that I can't remember where I was going. The vault is where the wisdom is.
Yes.
Welcome to the vault. We're your host today, and this is a second time only we've had 4 people on the podcast.
Wow.
This is a 4PP.
A 4-person podcast.
Yeah, it's actually a 4PP and 1T.
One Terry.
One Terry.
One Terry the Triceratops. One Triceratops. And there is, for the first time, 2 girls.
Wow.
2 girls and 2 boys.
I
So
do
it's-
like it how you guys say that we're a part of their team.
Yes, you are a
really
part of our
cool.
team. Every
I
single...
like
Yes.
that. We're a part of your
Well,
team.
will you accept Becky as a part of your team? We hope so, because
Yes.
she's one of our best. If you don't accept her, your
If you-
standards are wrong.
if you haven't
the
listened to
best.
or watched the podcast before, then this is from Hillsong Kids in Australia, and we are here to collectively raise all of our own wisdoms so that we can do ministry better, more
I like
effectively
that.
with our children.
That's so good.
And so I've got my checklist here. Who are we? Check. Establish rapport.
Check.
Updates on what's going on at the moment. Last week we had an update about
The rap party.
the rap party. We talked
Yes.
about our party that we had for...
Now, it's mid-November at the moment, and
Yes.
so we're getting very close to a very important time in the Christian calendar.
What's
Yes.
Easter.
Christmas. Christmas is first.
Christmas. So
That was
Easter's more
amazing.
important, but Christmas
Wow.
is first.
where are you
That
going
is
with this,
so
Dan?
amazing.
Well, that's what's happening. So we're actually getting ready for our big spectaculars all around
Yes.
around the country.
And this is also the time we really ramp up towards our summer camps happening.
Oh,
after
yes.
this.
Very good.
Summer
For
camps
us,
is massive.
We
for
have
us.
just begun at the beginning of the month talking about registering our
Yeah.
families for summer camps
Yeah.
because it takes
Yeah.
a long. If you know this, summer camps can be quite expensive for families.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you have 2 or 3 kids and you've got kids in youth ministry and kids ministry,
Yeah.
that could be $1,000. It could be a lot of money to get all
Yeah.
those kids to summer camp. So we want to start early and help our parents overcome that hurdle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because also they're paying for Christmas and all.
Yeah.
Anyway, la-di-da. And it's so we work hard to make sure our kids get to summer camp at the end of January,
Yes.
a couple of weeks, maybe 1 week before they go back to school in Australia in the Southern Hemisphere in the beginning of February.
Now, we'll say Marie Kondo very much endorses experiences for Christmas rather than
She's the minimalist lady on
rather
Netflix.
than things or clutter. So there'd be no better gift to give your child
Yes.
than a registration to summer camp.
Yeah.
That's true.
And if we can get parents to buy it as a present, like a gift, if it can be one of your gifts at Christmas. That's a good win.
Yeah.
That's a good win.
You know what I mean? Hopefully kids are excited to go to summer camp,
Yeah.
so they'll like that. Today we didn't do, you know what I remember last week? We didn't do a shout out.
I didn't do a shout out.
So today we're going to do a shout out now I haven't had an email nomination for the shout out of the week. So we're going to have to nominate somebody. So if we try and remember this
You've
one.
been travelling, Becky.
Becky
do.
Becky needs to give a shout out for a team member of the week. Now, because no one's nominated anybody from our team around the world, we're going to have to do one from Australia.
Yes.
All right.
Now, you and I visited similar places, so don't nominate who I nominated previously.
I've already watched the podcast.
Oh, very
so
good.
I know who
Yeah.
nominated,
Exactly.
and they are one of my faves.
They are one of my faves too.
And we'll also have email of the week. And how do you email us, Stanley Archer?
You you register for a course on how to use the internet.
Then after that,
you email at thevault@hillsong.com.
thevault@hillsong.com. That'll come straight through to us. We'll print it out on this piece of paper,
It's
and
so
I will
cool.
say the words that are written on it. So let's begin. Hi, amazing team in Australia. Thank you. I'm going to mess this name up because she is from the Netherlands. The Netherlands, which they speak Dutch and English, and her name is, what do you think? Dienke?
Oh, she's one of our team.
Is she?
Yeah.
Well, what's her name then?
She's on our WhatsApp.
I'm gonna say-
Global WhatsApp.
Oh, there she is. I should read who these are from, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
Kids and family pastor, Hillsong Church in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Danica?
Denicky?
Denicky. Oh, this is bad. We feel bad. We read your name all the time, but we've never said it out loud. And I don't have Anya here to help me read this, who's our Dutch, one of our Dutch
Well, we
students
love
here.
you
We've got two
anyway.
Dutch people.
We love
I love
you.
it. All right.
Nike.
We're going to call you
She's
D
into Adidas.
Swizz. D Swizz is her name.
D-Swizz.
D
Adidas,
Swizz
sorry.
emails us. Team member D Swizz emails us.
Yeah, and her last name?
Do we do that? Do we?
It's I haven't got enough time. Let's keep going.
Manger.
A thing we're struggling with is how to deal with multiple languages in one service.
Wow.
In the Netherlands, we have both Dutch and English-speaking children on our normal Sundays. But in Belgium, they have a location in Belgium, which is a whole different country. But they do have a location in Belgium. We have 3 languages: Dutch, English, and French.
Wow.
What is Belgium? Is there a language called Belgium?
German.
Dan will look it up.
German.
Dan's going to look up what is the main language in Belgium. We have 3 languages. Of course, we give translations, but we're struggling to keep attention during the preachings because everything takes twice or triple the time, which I can't even wrap my head around.
no.
We do one-on-one translations, so literally sitting next to a child to translate what is being said on the platform.
Wow.
Kids feel a bit left out of the rest of the group. We would love to hear if there are any refreshing ideas or tips we can try. Before we say anything, what is the main language of Belgium?
Okay, so Belgium is a form of cured meat.
Nope.
That is found
Okay,
in supermarkets.
Dan, your
sorry,
fact-
French, Dutch, and German.
Okay, so there's no actual Belgian language. Belgian.
Or German.
Okay, so, this is really a question that we do not have a lot of
Yeah.
experience with. So, Dan, you know what I'm going to do?
I have a little.
Oh, yes.
And we're going to have a little bit of but I want to open this to the wisdom of the vault.
Yeah.
Oh, I
If
like
you
it.
have experience dealing with
Yes.
multiple languages, we want to hear from you.
Yes.
Because we really don't have a lot. We've got some thoughts and ideas, but
And you know someone who might be able to speak into this is
Who?
Beck Tinker. So in her experience at Hillsong Israel, she was there for 3 months. They have 5 languages going.
Oh.
5 languages.
Yeah.
But can she help us right now?
No, but
So-
you may be able to ask her
Okay, great.
during the week.
Is that what you're going to do? You're going
I
to
can
ask
do
her?
that.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
great,
That'd be
thanks.
lovely.
She needs to email it. Tell her to email the
Yes.
vault with her thoughts.
But I know that one of the things that she did was that so some of our Hillsong Kids things
Come
that we
forward to the
use-
mic, Rebecca Wakerley, so we can hear your
So
beautiful
I know
voice.
that one of her first port of calls that she started to do was translate some of our, say, like encouragement certificates and new Christian certificates. She's just got the artwork translated into the right language so that the kids, that was one of the places that she started. I know that.
Okay, so her materials.
Yes, so started
That's a
looking
good
at the
start.
materials and she started finding out from the other countries. So I think a lot of the kids spoke Russian, so she reached out to Kiev.
Yeah, sure, that
And
works.
was like, what do you guys do with your Russian language speaking children? So
Moscow, she would have reached
Yeah.
out to.
I feel like we need to.
So that's a good thought. That's a good thought I've never thought of before. But start with your printed material. And if you are doing preaching to the kids, maybe translate the big points you want them to get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So have them in different languages. And that's pretty easy to translate a few sentences that you can at least give the kids and say, here's the main things I've been talking about. I don't know. It's a little thing you can do.
Yeah.
Corinne has a thought, though.
I have a thought. So in the 7 p.m. service, that is I would say close to a non-English speaking service.
And the city,
And
7
in the city
p.m.
campus, yeah. And for a while, it's been like that for a long time. But for a while, we were kind of like, what do we do with this? There's so many kids that speak Portuguese and Spanish, and none of the leaders do. And so me and my oversight, we were just like, we just got to pray. So obviously, first point of call, we prayed for leaders who specifically could speak to the kids.
Right.
And we got them. But then we realised if these kids are coming to the service, that means that the family's coming to the service too.
Yep.
So we just need to be making sure that we're asking. Like, it's almost like it's a no-brainer. Like, the kids are there because the families are there. If that culture is there, we just need to think outside the box and ask people from that culture, hey, we actually need your help in kids. Even
Right.
if you don't think you're good with kids, can you come and help run the small group?
Yeah,
And
doing a
that's
small
where,
group.
so
yeah.
doing the small group was where the translations was happening
There's some
Right.
ex-
for
Cool.
Portuguese.
There's some exciting things I just found out last week that we will be trying in Hillsong Church in general is auto translations. So actually have computers doing the translations rather than people. A lot of times we have headsets and people would be translating live, but there's actually going to be automated systems. So maybe in 10 years this is not actually going to be an issue.
Yeah.
But I will say something, with translations, you've also, because she's talking about another country, you've also got to think culturally.
Yes.
I went to Rwanda with on a missions trip, and the pastors that were preaching, there was this one great bit, everything was being translated for them, and they said, we've got all these kids coming in, and they translated this, and they come in on their skateboards, and the translator stopped, looked at him and said, what's a skateboard? And then he looked at him and went, well, it's like a thing on a wheels and a thing. It's like, what do you mean? And they had this conversation, and I started yelling out, forget the skateboard!
Move on.
It's not crucial to the story.
So we want to hear from you for this answer because we don't know how to answer it.
Ooh, our first unanswered question.
Is it?
Another immediate,
Maybe.
another immediate
Oh,
thing
she's
that
got
I've
another
seen
thought.
that wasn't in the night service, in one of our busiest services, which is the 9:45. So you're talking, it's the most kids and the most leaders we have. And there was a leader who was super smart, and he got his phone out. And so he speaks 5 languages already, so he's pretty next level. But he didn't speak, I can't remember what language it was. It might have been an Asian one. He didn't speak it. He got his phone out, he sat next to the kid and used Google Translate to translate the message,
That's
the preacher,
cool.
Amazing.
which is kind of cool.
So yeah, maybe technology is going to help us in the future, but we want to hear from you. All right, hi the Vault podcast. Everyone say hello to a team member, Angela.
Yay!
Hi, Angela.
Melbourne East, 5:30 p.m. service. PS. I'll read the PS first. Melbourne East, 5:30 p.m. service. Young Guns deserve all the prizes.
Yes.
They're amazing and such MVPs. Young Guns are our teenage leaders in Hillsong Kids. And so this is Angela. Since you asked so nicely, I wanted to send you an email. Did we ask nicely, Dan?
Yes.
I think we did.
Which is odd for you.
I've kind of been me asking. I found your podcast to be really helpful. Thank you so much, Angela. I'm a new room leader and I've been serving our kids for just on a year.
That's amazing.
Serving our PM service, and currently we have Cubby Ark Funhouse in one room. So it's with big room together with maybe 1 to 5, 6, 7-year-olds together in. So the room I serve in, use a lot of your suggestions, created a cubby corner with bean bags and a cozy quilt. So she works with our little ones. She's got an iPad going on so they can watch our media on that.
So cool.
It's awesome. A YouTube playlist of Hillsong Kids music. Even got that option. Look, there's lots of great things here.
So from you
Maybe this is just a pump. Maybe this is just a nomination for us today.
I think.
Yeah.
I think
You also suggested creating jobs for kids who are bored. She's done everything we've ever suggested, is what I'm saying.
It's amazing.
Drawing
Surprise.
tutorials. She goes, this week, last episode, we recently talked about doing drawing tutorials, which is what my kids are into on YouTube. And so they watch the
Yes, so
YouTube,
good.
teach them how to draw, and that keeps them really focused.
Yeah.
Dan's kids, they've started doing that.
you got me on.
She's creating playlists on YouTube from the suggestions. Oh my goodness.
Cool.
She just wants to let us know that even though our subscriber count may not be in the thousands yet,
We're
you're
getting
still
there.
amazing. Angela, you already won the email of the
Yes.
day.
I think the
wow.
podcast
Yes.
is over. She is our podcast. Angela.
I love
a
it.
round of
Wow.
applause as a side effect.
Team
I'm
member.
gonna call it Angela is up there.
What do you
with
mean?
Tash.
With
That's
Tash.
our favorite
Tash, yep.
favorite team members.
Tash, last weekend we heard back from Tash, who appreciated all of our shout-outs. And this week it's
And-
Angela.
Yes.
We've got a new Tash, and her name is Angela.
And we've got Tash.
All right, now this is I kind of want to. This is a big one of these big questions, but it's from a team member, William. Say hi, William.
Hi, William.
Hi.
He teaches a class with 11 to 15-year-olds,
Ooh,
so it's on the upper end, which is teenagers. He has a lesson plan that includes Bible exploration, object lessons, and breakaway group activities. Cool. Some Sundays are great in terms of attentiveness and involvement, but some Sundays, 2 in the group of, say, 16 may begin talking amongst themselves while the teacher is sharing. Then it spreads around everywhere. So this is a question, I guess, about how to engage kids. And now they are teenagers,
Yeah.
which
Wow.
is, that is another whole nother, how do we put this?
Ball
It's a
game?
whole nother ball game.
Yeah.
Because we, obviously, at Hillsong Kids, when they hit 12 and they go into high school at the age of 13, we say, bye-bye, go and hang out in youth ministry. So, look, it's a really good, keeping consensual. I will say this. It sounds like you are treating church like a bit of a school with a classroom. And again, your kids have been at school maybe for the whole week.
Right.
They've been at school for 5 days. Do they really want to come into another classroom? So I really want you to consider the way you're setting up your room before you even get the kids in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it need to look like school? Because they maybe want to do something different on
Yeah.
Sundays. And so I'll start with that thought. But how do we keep these kids engaged when you're up the front? Give us a couple of tips. We've talked about this before, I think, on episode three or something. But anyway, we have talked about this. But go, Becky.
Yeah, I think my tip would be having a teenager myself now.
Oh, yes.
I mean, relationship is so important. Their friends are absolutely everything. So I think that opportunity for them, to make sure there is opportunity for them to just relate. Like just relationship
Yeah.
time, hanging out. What do you think about this? Splitting them up even to smaller groups. What do you guys think about this Bible verse? And then come back to me. And then, kids love when other kids are on stage or owning parts
Yeah.
of the program. Same with teenagers. So who are those confident teenagers
Yep.
that maybe, hey, next week, do you reckon you could go home and study this and teach the kids on this? So then it's not just like school,
Yeah.
a teacher talking to the kids, but how can you get the teens involved in actually running parts of the program? Because you'll
Very
get
good.
all of the teenagers involved when there's another teenager doing it. So just a few thoughts there.
Yeah, look, you know what?
Book the ringleader.
That's a good thought. I don't think we've really talked about that before. Oh, we probably have a little bit, but yes. We talked about it last week about serving, and the thought from last week was, imagine a child going from the age of 1 to 12 through your entire ministry and never get asked to serve or participate in church.
Wow.
And so we don't just want to create kids opportunities for kids to serve who maybe show an interest.
Yeah.
We want to make sure every kid
Yeah.
gets a chance to
Yeah.
serve. And by the time they become teenagers, hopefully, they're going to be open and willing to actually teaching and
Yeah.
talking about Jesus to other kids.
Yeah.
All right.
I will say this for William.
got a fact
By the
check?
way, no, William is
Yes.
in Zimbabwe, which is amazing.
Wow.
It is
So
from Zimbabwe.
exciting. There's a phrase in
Oh my goodness. In Zimbabwe.
American football
Yes.
Okay.
called an audible.
Yes.
So an audible is when you switch things up. The last second, they're about to do a play, and they
Right.
switch things up to change the dynamics
Yeah,
of the
okay.
game.
Yep.
So I would highly suggest for Will and for us to plan a few audibles in your back pocket
Yes.
to be able to throw out at any
That's
point.
brilliant.
So if you find that you are losing the group
Yeah.
at one point, and as you said, the
Yeah.
inattentiveness
The inattentiveness.
seems to spread, is you can throw in something. It could be a game, it could be a pointed
brilliant.
question, it could be whatever to try and re-engage, and then don't
Yeah.
move on until you've got their attention. And sometimes, even if you finish a lesson halfway through because that's all that could go in,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah,
that's
that's
all
great.
that's all that could go in that day. But don't keep trudging through if you've
absolutely.
lost the room.
But not a physical football,
Yeah.
right?
Metaphorical football.
And for
So-
teenagers, food.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially teenage
actually,
boys.
good point.
Yeah, just
Have a bag of potato chips and they will take a handful. You'll have their attention for at least 5
That's a great idea. Okay, now, if you're listening to the podcast or you're watching the podcast, that's our friend William from Zimbabwe.
Yes,
I don't even know if
William.
if English is his first language, but if William can email us a question
Yes.
at thevault@hillsong.com,
Yes.
so can you.
Yes.
Would you back me up on that one, Dan?
William sent us a few emails actually.
He did. Thank you, William. Okay.
So great.
By the way, we're piling through the questions today. I'm on fire because I
It's
want to
with
get a lot
the
of questions
girls.
done. It's with the
Yeah.
girls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keeping it sharp.
Last episode, the boys, we didn't
answered
get
1.5 questions.
1.5 questions.
And
Those boys,
talked
Ben
about
and Graham, just
Yeah.
on and on. Couldn't keep them quiet.
Yeah.
All right. This is a very quick email from David. Say hi to David,
Hi,
team member
David.
David. Great name, David. David and Denica. Oh, that's not our new. That's not our new. Is that our new team members?
Yes.
From
Yes,
Collingwood?
David, yes.
That is from our team, right?
From up in
Isn't Denica? Isn't
Up
the
the
one I was
Oh,
asking?
yeah. Were these the ones that did the YouTube video and they said, this is how you say my name?
Yes.
Can
Right.
I,
That's
can
so
I just,
cool.
can I just
I
add
just
one of
clicked.
Dave's funniest jokes on WhatsApp? They said, introduce Dave and Denica, Denika, and Dave
Yes.
wrote back, I really need you to make a video pronouncing your name. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce David.
Yes.
Very clever.
Thank you very much.
And
One
then
of my
they
best
did the
work.
video, which was great.
And they did the video, and then they
Those
also.
guys are awesome.
So yeah, it's Denica. I can't remember how she pronounced it, but I think it's right.
David.
Stop it. So this is amazing. You know what? At some point, I'm going to read these emails before I get to the podcast, so I know realize who these people are. Oh, that's hilarious. Then
What's
they're
the
not
question?
from Collingwood. Their last name is Collingwood. I got confused. I don't know why I thought that was where they're from. Collingwood's down in Melbourne, right?
It sounds like a suburb.
Isn't it like a football team?
Collingwood is in Melbourne,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Thanks, Dan. Thanks for fact checking that. Okay, so thanks, David and Denica. How do you create an atmosphere environment to help engage kids in KDGs? Now, this is a great question. We haven't really talked about small groups.
Yes.
So KDGs are kids discipleship groups, our small groups for kids. The way that we do our kids ministry for most of our age groups is a large group, small group, hang together, worship, preach, get down together in small groups and talk about it. So there's a video on our YouTube channel. If you
Yes.
search KDGs, Hillsong Kids KDGs, it should come up with a couple of videos that I've done in the past that will give
Very
you some
good.
tips, and it's
Yeah.
very good to send your team.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you've got a team who is struggling with small groups, send them. It's a short 10-minute video, which I try to pack as much into as possible to keep these volunteers engaged and going, here's some tips how to work with small groups. So let's start off. I just think, what are some thoughts on KDGs? Becky, you kick us off.
I think my biggest thought would be is that from a Hillsong Kids perspective, we actually have everything online during the week, and I actually think it starts with the leader. So if they come prepared and kind of got a gist of what their morning's going to look like and they've thought it through, I feel like that is the start to a really great running KDG. They've read the KDG
Small group
Leaders
leader.
Guide, Small
Yep.
Group Leaders Guide. They can see where it's going to go, like Dan said, ready with like something in their pocket if they need to pull out a game or, however that looks. But I think it actually starts with the leader and just that 10 minutes per week, which doesn't even need to be more than that, to think about what they want to do in that 15 minutes and how they can make that 15 minutes a win.
So here's your checklist for a KDG leader. We want them to have in their pocket a card game. We want them to have food, right? And we want them to at least already know the outcome of the questions, the
Yeah.
direction
Yeah.
of the conversation.
Yeah.
Now, you may not even use the card game, but if I'm sitting with a small group and I pull out a pack of cards and put it in the middle of the table and
Yeah.
say, hey guys, if we're focused here, we'll
Yeah.
have a quick round of cards.
Yeah.
They could get into that. Could
That's
be
so
Uno.
Monopoly deals.
Monopoly deal is a good one.
$10.
And if you get into the habit of that, you could actually build more relationship
Yeah.
playing cards with your kids.
Yeah.
Potentially, especially a bunch of boys, I know, like a year 5 group, year 6 group of boys would be perfect to play cards with. If you've got food, it's
Yeah. really
really going to help you. I don't do a KDG, a small group, unless I have food. That helps so much because I put it in the middle of the table, the crackers, say, we're not opening that yet, but we will if you guys focus and listen. And then, what did I say? And I also know where I want to direct that conversation. So that's my 3 tips. And you could literally, if you've got leaders who have those 3 things in mind already, you're 47% of the way there.
Yeah.
47?
Bonus level.
Yes,
on
bonus
that
level on that.
is creating traditions.
Yeah.
Right.
So every time we sit down, the first thing we do is, even if it's a game of Snap or
Yeah.
a game of whatever, it's
Yes.
the first thing we do because this is what we do in our KDG.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
They love it. They look forward to it.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to think of a new game each week. This is,
Absolutely.
We-
You could have the sports update at the beginning of
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
KDG. All the boys that play sport, you go, okay, in soccer, what was your score? Did you score anything? And they go through the sports results.
And bonus level,
Ooh.
building on yours, is how can you, like, that ownership of your KDG, like, this is my KDG. It's not,
Yeah.
I'm running a Hillsong
Yes,
Kids
that's
KDG.
right.
This is my KDG. Like, I've seen KDG lead, like, girl KDG leaders who have, like, had a special book, and the girls put their photos in it and write down all the things that they love, and they get to take it home and then write down their favourite Bible verse, and they've made, like, a KDG poster, or like what Dan said, it's like that fun game. So, like, actually, if you were a KDG leader, it's your KDG, and what would you do to create a culture of your KDG? And then bonus level.
So many bonus levels.
What I love is a mum was telling me, excuse me, yesterday, how she picked up her son on the weekend, and a leader rushed at her, and she's like, oh no, what has my son done? And he's like, I'm your kids' KDG leader. Your son is amazing. He is so awesome, and thank you so much for bringing him to Hillsong Kids. And she was like, so blown away. So, like, identify yourself to the parents as their child's KDG leader and start that language. And they might like, what's a KDG? It's kid discipleship groups, and it's a small group, and we talk about the Bible and we talk about life. Like, yeah.
So many bonus levels.
Bonus.
No
level
pressure. No
is
pressure.
Corinne?
No pressure. She said something about atmosphere. What did she say about atmosphere creating? Oh, you've already thrown it. That's the main word that stood out to me. And I was thinking, teach your leaders how to read the kids as well, because I think that doesn't always come natural for people to know how to read their kids. So, for instance, in the morning services, it's pretty structured that our KDGs and KDG leaders would actually sit either around a circle table or sit on the floor, but they kind of sit together. It's a little bit more relaxed.
And they usually have the same space,
and
right?
it's the same space. It's very, like it's not like black and white has to be like this, but it just is that way. But in the nights, it can be either a kid's second service, it can be that they came from sports, can be that they went to a party and are full of sugar, and they don't want to be sitting in a circle and having chill vibes. So the leaders can read that. Okay, if that's not going to work, we're going to, with the boys, play soccer. And while they're playing soccer and running around and kicking the ball, they're having conversation. And the KDG leader knows the study because hopefully he's read that. So he can actually do that on the fly, if that makes sense.
Cool. I love it.
So I think atmosphere-wise, you're still getting your KDG done, but it doesn't have
You're still
to be
accomplishing your goal.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Time for the bonus level.
Whoa.
Sit together in the large group portion with your KDG.
Yes. I want to be a KDG leader now.
Yeah, if you do all of those things, you can't help but win.
Quick fact check.
Yes.
There's generally bonus levels are just called the next level.
Okay.
So
Right. So what level did we get to?
Year one bonus, like 8. So
Right. So that was just 8 levels with no bonuses.
8 levels, yeah.
All right.
We went deep, guys.
Say hello to team member Sarah, everybody.
Hi, Sarah.
Yay,
From New Hope in London, you know Sarah because Sarah Paulovics,
Whoa.
who is now Sarah Campbell, was with us over here in Australia years ago as a student. So her name was on this email in different ways.
Because she got married.
She got married. I'm assuming got married. So she's put that in there so we'll recognize who she is. First, thank you. It says, hi, Dave, Jess and Dan, because, you guys
You
know
guys
you're
are
going
the
to be here.
originals.
Because we're the bonus.
Oh,
Yeah, we're the
you're the
bonus.
Also, I want to put in here Beci and Corinne. First, thank you, capital letters, for starting this podcast. I'm so happy to be hearing from you all on a regular basis. I could cry. Love it.
Well, I think everyone can cry.
I already feel like I've been inspired with fresh ideas to take our ministry forward, so that's pretty cool. My questions, she's put question, then apostrophe S, are, usually you put that, she knows there's going to be more than one question.
She knew.
She knows.
knows.
What do you think would be the wisest way to split time when leading whole departments? Time for each age group, volunteers, visits, etc. So she's the children's youth pastor, babies to year 8. Wow. Oh, okay. So not all the way to end of high school, but up to year 8. So you've got a few teenagers going on in there. Oh, my goodness. Well, I guess technically in Australia, a child is anybody 16 and under, and you don't become an adult until you literally turn 18. So let's just say children are children, and I know we talk about not doing much with teenagers, but let's just look at the whole group. So from 0 to the age of 16, there's essentially, they are all kids. They're all children. Even though they're a bit older and they're a bit grosser and sweatier when they become teenagers, they're still all kids. Oh man, what wisest way to split time when leading whole departments?
So she's talking about a program?
I think what it is age group volunteers visits, doing the work of the ministry midweek.
Right.
Okay.
Because as a pastor, you may only be able to do a certain amount of hospital visits, all right?
Yeah.
But then also every visit that you do takes a couple of hours, and that takes you away from doing the work for the week. Like, you've got to balance everything out a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
But oh my goodness, anybody got thoughts on that one?
Yeah, well,
It's a good question, Sarah. It's a very good question.
Actually starts with her, right? She needs to set up a structure for herself that will work for herself. Like, well, I don't know how to put this into words.
Words are good.
Structures and systems. I don't like structures and systems personally.
Right.
But we need them, right? Because without structures and systems, things will fall apart.
Yes.
Think about
Things get
a
messed.
piping system.
Yep.
When you pour the water, if all the pipes are either not there or don't work, the water's just going to splash everywhere. But when you pour it, if she's got the system there, it's all going to flow through nicely.
The water flows down.
So so she's at the top. So before she even thinks about the whole overwhelming side of everything just needs to get done, she needs to personally break it down for what is it that she needs to get done and do that first layer of structure. And then she needs to maybe sit down and write out a plan for herself. Once she gets that done, then she needs to find the right people, not just anyone, but those people. It could be just the 2 people under her that can hold her hands up, to say, and then just slowly work it down from there.
Yeah.
But also don't put pressure on yourself to make this happen in a week or in a month. It's actually going to take time.
Yeah.
But I would say what you want to do definitely is you want to go to visit your lead pastor, your oversight, and say, hey, listen, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
What's really important? What would you be disappointed if I didn't get done in a week?
Yes.
If I didn't do something in any given week, is there anything you'd be really upset that I didn't do that?
Yeah.
Because you'll get some surprising answers possibly.
Right.
So that's a good place to start there, because then you know what to drop in a sense.
Yeah.
You're
Because
establishing your non-negotiables.
non-negotiables.
The big rocks.
So good.
So there's a leadership principle called the big rock principle, which if you fill a jar with rocks, if you just chuck them all willy-nilly, you're not going to get a lot of jars in there. You first start with the big rocks, the things that can't be moved, and then you put the normal size rocks, then you put the pebbles, then you put the sand, and then you're maximising your...
Well, the sand fills the gaps,
The
doesn't
sand
it?
fills the gap, so you maximise your entire time.
Yeah.
But so there's some things in your week that you need to focus on. But I'd encourage you, the difficulty is in school, they find that the kids that teachers are most need to attune to are the kids in the middle, not the kids that are going forward strides because they get enough attention to keep them going.
Right.
Not the kids that are crying for attention all the time because they're struggling.
Yeah.
They get a lot of attention, but the kids that are in the middle, that's really difficult.
Yeah.
So if you look at saying, who do I need to spend time with this week? Encourage you to actually strategically take a step back and think about how you can help each department, because there might be a department that you might overlook because they're going great. They're going okay. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. But they might be someone that you need to pay a bit of attention on. But the other thing I'd say is encourage you to have a default.
Yes.
So this is my default. This is what my week looks like. But in the end of the day, all this encouragement and systems. At the end of the day, you've been chosen to lead your teams.
Yeah.
So like a parent, you can read all the parenting books, but at the end of the day, you've been called to raise your children.
Yeah.
So you hear from God, be able to make those changes, be flexible, and work. Yeah, you've been chosen to do this, so that's going to help you.
All right. I love it.
That?
100%.
Yeah.
There's a lot there. I don't know if we've answered that really satisfactorily. I'm not sure. It's a tricky one because it's doing the work of the ministry again, and there's so much more to it.
It'd be great to hear from other people that lead vast spans of
ages.
Up to a lot of family pastors out there. Please write.
I will say this
question.
Though. Here's the thought: a 0 to 16-year-olds would possibly be for us. I'm going to say 35% of our church.
Yeah.
Maybe 30%, maybe even more, right? So, Sarah, you could be leading as a sole person. I don't know if you're the only person on staff, but 35% of your church.
Yeah.
If you've got 10 other pastors dealing with 16 and above, then they're only dealing with maybe 5%, 10% of the church. Like, look at what you're doing and go, be realistic about what you can achieve
Yes.
as a single,
Yeah.
Exactly.
but go to the leadership and say, hey, listen, you need to know the percentage that you're dealing with. So from 0 to 16, you're saying, hey, pastor, this is 35% of our church. Like and I'm getting 4% of the budget. Can we help it? So come with facts, come with stats.
Yeah.
Look at where you're at strategically. That's all I want to say about that. And then, so Sarah talks about bringing up hard topics to the lead pastor without coming across as negative. And that's a tricky one. But it's also bringing up the reality with that, because you don't want to come across as complaining, I think is what she's saying.
Yeah.
But she wants to bring it up in a way that addresses the issues. And to talk to that, Becky?
I think it depends on what forums you've got to be able to talk to your lead pastor. So, for example, I do an exec report every week, and it asks me for the biggest win, and then it asks me for the biggest challenges.
Right.
And it's a way for me to be able to express through that, this is where I'm at, this is what's happening, this is what I'm focusing on. And then I'll always make sure when I'm, say, maybe expressing challenges or concerns, that this is a solution that I think might work.
Yeah.
So even like, what do you think? And then you'll always be amazed at what, those that you're under or working alongside, at what gold they can bring to the situation. Yeah. And look, one thing that I'm learning to be really good at, and I was in a staff meeting a couple of weeks ago where one of the people speaking talked about the importance of big picture and the importance of getting rid of elephants in the room.
Right.
And it really challenged me. And I'm like, at the end of the day, when you're not bringing concerns forward or challenges and strategizing and trying to bring strategy, it actually is just this elephant that's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think sometimes we've got to, when we want an elephant to become smaller, it's sometimes going to require our confidence to get bigger. But at the end of the day, we want to get rid of the elephant in the room, right?
Yeah.
And so I think where you can have boldness and where you can have confidence, and then creating a time where you are meeting regularly where it actually becomes really natural to talk about wins and roadblocks and all of that stuff.
Yes.
But
Yes.
you want to also
Yes.
make sure that your conversation with them is not just roadblocks, but hey, these are the wins. This is how we're moving forward.
Yeah.
This is my vision for next year. This is what I'm thinking. I've got these roadblocks here. What do you think? What do you see? What do you want? Any thoughts? And you never know what gold they can bring to it as well.
Create the forum before you need to use the forum.
Yeah.
All right. Love it. That's a good thought. Thank you,
that-
Sarah. Thank you, team member Sarah. Yes, fact check, Dan?
Oh, I was just going to add.
Okay.
There's lots of
Yes.
interesting articles on how to communicate to senior pastors, senior management. But
Yes.
one big thing is they talk about proactively aim to provide insight in every conversation. This is from a LinkedIn article. You are the kids' pastor, you are the kids' leader, you're the family's pastor. You have greater insight into that specific area than your senior pastor does.
Trust your knowledge.
That's why they have hired you.
Yeah.
So make sure that in those things, you're not just bringing them problems, you bring them problems with 3 or 4 different solutions that you have thought, this may work, this may work, this may work. Please give me insight into what you see to help me choose the
Bring
best
the
way
solutions,
forward.
or bring the options.
Bring the options.
100%.
They can choose.
All right, here we go. Say hello. Okay, someone's
Say
going to help me
hello
pronounce
to
My
this.
little friend.
Say hello to my little friend. IXCHEL.
Ixchel.
We apologise.
Ixchel,
Say hello to
the last
Ixchel, team member Ixchel from Venezuela.
And the last name?
Tatasol Malava. Well, that's a bit easier, I think.
Tatas
That
We
was
apologise.
impressive.
I think I've destroyed it. I reckon he wouldn't pronounce the X. I reckon it's like Ishel or something, you know?
Ishel. Ishel Tatasamala. I love it.
No. From Venezuela, but in a church in Worcester, Massachusetts.
Oh, it's in America.
Yes.
America.
I love working at kids ministry as a leader. I listened to the 6th episode of the Vault podcast. Lovely. We are on our way to start Sunday services at the kids ministry. Okay, so it's a very new. Can you give us more details about the order of your kids service? Remember how we talked about this, the order of what we do? And then we said, if you want to know more, email us.
Yeah.
Well, this is the email about that.
Wow.
Because we kind of went roughly over what we were doing, but we'll talk through that now. Also, how do you engage kids from different ages to worship God? Same routine every Sunday. And how about what do you do when they come in and service hasn't started yet? Okay, so
This is all
let's
Becky.
go roughly.
It's all Beci and Corinne. They can
It's
answer
all Beci
this.
and Corinne. So roughly, let's go through the order of our service. As we said, it's large group, small group.
Yep.
So a large group, and so before the service even starts, what are we doing, Corinne?
Before the service even starts, we call
For
it
the kids that are there early.
we call it. I suppose we call it hang time.
Hang
right?
time.
So hang time is not. But don't get me wrong. Hang time is not like just unsupervised, like a parent, like an unsupervised playtime in the mall. That's not what it is.
Leaders aren't getting their me time.
Yeah. No leaders use their phones in Hillsong
Daddy
Kids
just needs some me
programs. This is
time.
not Instagram time. Hang time is actually the time if it's a transition between two services, leaders saying goodbye to the kids, maybe giving a good report to the parent on the pickup, and the kids that are coming in, it's giving them a personal hello and transitioning them to either hang with them as the leader or transition them into a group of kids, because we are all about connecting kids with kids. With Jesus and with leaders. So that is pretty much what our hang time, I suppose, in a nutshell is.
Yes. And then once the service starts, which may not be, if our service starts at 11:30, for example, we may not start doing Hillsong Kids until 11:35, a little bit after, because again, we are dealing with families who don't come always on time. Let's put it that way. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Every single kids leader who's listening to this. So that wouldn't start, and even a bit later. So that hang time does serve a purpose there. Then we have a countdown video that's potentially going to start, especially with our older age group, our school age kids. And that's a 3-minute countdown video it's almost like kids know what's going to about to happen when that video starts. Or there's a tidy up song that we do. Now, I would recommend you use a tidy up song because, again, when kids hear that, after a certain amount of time, they're going to have a response to that. And hopefully that response is, it's time to finish what I'm doing and let's prepare to get together. So that starts us off, and that's really important for us because it's a signal that we're about to begin, and we don't have to kind of walk around the room gathering the kids because they won't want to be gathered. Some of them won't want to; they want to keep playing. Then we gather them together and we do a large group time. We start off with praise and worship generally. We do a couple of worship songs, and that could be with our lyric videos or with a band, depending on our location. And that's when a worship leader is up there. And there'll be an MC. Every service has an MC. I'm just going to interrupt me if I forget anything, guys, but I'm going to go through it as quick as I can. Every service has an MC, which is hosting the service, talking to the kids, helping keeping the service moving forward. They know what's going on. They have a run sheet. Yeah. He'll be working closely with at least one worship leader who is responsible for leading the kids in worship. After a couple of songs, maybe we'll take a break and pray for kids, minister to them. We have Ask Gods and Thank You Gods, which kids can write down things that they are asking God or thanking God for. After that, we go straight into an offering. After we've prayed for the kids, maybe it's time for an offering message. We are obviously not expecting huge, this offering is more about establishing a pattern that they do when they come to church.
We don't really need the 45 cents.
We don't need the 50 cents that they're putting in the offering, but we're teaching them a pattern, and we want to establish this is what you do at church. You're generous, we give, and then we do things like get all the kids sitting down again. By this time, all the kids should be there, even the kids that have turned up late. And you might want to take another little moment to welcome everybody, saying hi to new kids, and making sure that the kids know what's going to happen next. If you're new, or even if kids have been around for a while, never just assume they know what's going to happen. So our MCs need to be very welcoming and going, okay, now we're going to sit down, we're going to listen to a message, and we're going to watch a video, then we're going to do this explaining the process of the service that we're in. And then I've said and then a lot in this. After that,
the big message video.
We're going to show a big message video, which is our central kind of teaching video in a sense, followed by a preaching message. There'll be a big story video that the preachers will use. We'll kind of finish up preaching with a quiz, another video quiz from our curriculum, which is kind of just as a way to get kids engaged and doing something different, engaging their brains. There's a few little things there we might do, like kids news. What's coming up? Here's what we're doing now. We also have a KDG transition video, which will ask a question to the kids, which transitions them into our small groups, which we talked about today, right?
Yes.
Extensively. That's a good way to help get the first question that you're going to talk about with your kids set up in a video. They ask the question, they transition into their KDGs. We talk and finish off the service after that. Is that fair enough, everybody?
Yeah.
Wow, it's
Was that very quick?
It's like you spend your time thinking through these things and making curriculum
Making
to fit
curriculums,
that.
right?
It is.
Yeah.
As if I've
fit
thought
that.
about this before.
Yeah.
But that's roughly it. It doesn't say the same every service. No, as Corinne has mentioned, sometimes in our 7 p.m. service at night, it's going to look very different.
Yeah.
These are kids that other kids are at home asleep, and these kids are at church. So that's a very different kind of kid we're dealing with. So that's generally the idea. Some services have KDGs first, and I think we'll be doing more of that in the future.
Yeah.
You come in, and the thing you start with is your small
What I've got
groups.
in the 8 a.m.
Right, some of our services do that, and so then you just flip it, but it's a similar kind of style. And what we're saying is about services, before we finish up, is this. Keep it simple. Yeah. You're about meeting together to worship God. And so everything that we do is we just kind of copy what Big Church does, and we want to keep it. There's no need to add in lots of little segments. I know I sounded like we had a lot, but generally it's pretty simple what we do with our children. Amazing.
And I think I was just going to mention, because
Do
I've
it,
just
Becky.
been a part of a church plant. One of our locations just started a couple of months ago, and I was a part of the team that pioneered the kids program side of it. And I think even before we started the actual services, our focus was recruiting team and what equipment we would need and how we were going to keep it safe. And then when we started the actual program, it was we were so blessed by Hillsong Kids' big curriculum, because we actually didn't have the strength in the team yet to do segments, but we had the media. So we kind of started with, what are our strengths? We can welcome people, we can make sure the kids have a good time, and then our run sheet was very heavy and media based.
Yes.
And now a couple of months in, the oversights are feeling a lot more confident, and they actually want to start small groups. Shout out to Eloise and Elizabeth. So it's kind of like in
There's our
Hillsong,
shout out.
in Hillsong Kids, we kind of have this terminology that we have a toolbox, and we want you to use the tools that you're ready to use, with the goal to use more. And so that's what I've seen with the church plant. It's like, how can we start strong by using a couple of tools, and then along the way pick up more? So the goal would be to head towards something like what Dave was talking about, which I love. But even if you're just starting with our beautiful media, because it's amazing and it's such a godsend, that's potentially where you can start. And the media actually does it all for you. It even has preaching videos.
It does
which
have
is
preaching on there.
amazing. So that's my thought.
Amazing. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on the Vault podcast. Thank you to
Yay.
Beci and Corinne as our guests today.
So fun.
Amazing.
Our email of the week, who is winning a Funny Man Dan digital DVD, is from Angela.
Oh,
It's from Angela.
Whoa.
Remember Angela,
Angela
right?
from
Yes.
the beginning.
From the beginning of the
And
podcast.
can I do another shout
That
out?
felt
Yes.
like
A
long time
VIP shout
ago.
out.
To who?
We just had our worship conference last week in Sydney, Australia, and we had the most incredible
It was a few
volunteers
weeks ago.
serving.
A few
weeks ago, but
yeah.
there was 49 volunteers, and so
Yes.
that's who I'm doing my shout out
Oh, wow,
to.
all of them.
All of
49 volunteers.
Alright,
You all get
alphabetical order.
big shout out from me, and especially thank you, Josh, Cole, and Megan, and Kelly, who are incredible. But everyone was awesome.
How funny is it? We've set up to do one shout out, but Becky comes in and can't.
You're
Doesn't want to let
you're
anybody out.
45 short. You mentioned 4 out of 49.
Stick around after the show on YouTube for the Vault Unlocked, our exclusive bonus training session for kids, leaders, and
Vault
pastors.
Unlocked.
Today it's going to be with Becky and
Goodness.
a session called
Creating pockets of greatness.
Creating Pockets of
great.
Greatness.
It's basically about
Hey, you stick around if you want to watch it.
Creating
pockets.
So.
Pockets.
Around.
Subscribe to this on YouTube, and you'll get to see that episode straight after this if you're on YouTube. If you are not there, go to Hillsong Kids for Kids, Hillsong Kids Leadership for you and pastors and leaders, and Funny Man Dan on YouTube. This is on Spotify, everywhere you get Apple Podcasts, all those things. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.